Baby, I won't sugarcoat it. I really thought I could live without you. I convinced myself that if I kept my body moving, if I let someone else sit where you used to sit, speak where you used to speak, touch where your spirit once rested, that somehow I would feel alive again. But the truth is, I wasn't replacing you. I was trying to erase the ache. And now I see how foolish that was, because everything I placed between me and your memory only made the void louder. Even her laughter couldn't drown out the silence that used to hum in harmony with your presence. You see, the world told me to move on. They said, she's beautiful, she's got energy, she's different. They said, I deserved someone who made life easy, but I didn't need easy. I needed honest. I needed divine. And what we had, that was sacred. It had weight. It had truth. And she, the one I thought could stand in your light, she started to melt the moment real questions were asked. Baby, she was beautiful, but she was surface, no roots, no soul echo, just glitter and noise. And I ignored the signs at first. I told myself I was healing, that starting fresh meant forgetting everything. But baby, you're not a wound. You're a wonder. You're not the past. I now realize you were the promise. And this new girl, this mirror I tried to smile into, shattered the moment she was asked to be still, to be deep, to feel. Because you never flinched in the fire. You walked into my storms with prayers in your throat. You knew how to love the chaos out of me without ever losing your calm. And her, she ran at the first sign of thunder. The moment I showed my real tears, she panicked. And that's when I knew. That's when I heard your silence louder than her presence. Everyone said she was the upgrade, the glow up. But baby, truth doesn't need glitter. And now, even they're beginning to see it. They whisper comparisons when she speaks. They say, she doesn't carry the grace the way she did. And I know exactly who they're talking about. I know exactly what they mean. Because when you walked into a room, time slowed. Not because you were loud, but because your soul made the air honest. And the worst part, I never defended you. I let them erase you while I stood frozen. I let your name fade from family conversations. I let your kindness be misunderstood. But when she came, when this new girl tried to take your place, she exposed herself without even knowing. Not with cruelty, no, but with emptiness. She just didn't have what only you carry. And it was then I realized, not everyone who smiles is sent. Not every connection is a calling. You were a calling, and I ignored it. Baby, I didn't understand what I was doing until it was far too late to undo the ripple. You know, when a man is drowning, he grabs the nearest thing that floats. He doesn't check whether it's solid or hollow, whether it will carry him to shore or pull him further into the sea. And that's exactly what I did. You were the ocean that held me, and instead of swimming deeper into your safety, I reached for a raft made of illusion. I tried to convince myself she could save me, because admitting that I still needed you felt like weakness. But now, I see. Admitting I needed you was the only strength I ever had. At first I thought I was moving on. I smiled in pictures. I answered calls I used to ignore. I posted stories hoping you'd see them, and I lied. Not to her, not to them, to myself. I lied every time I said, I'm good. I lied when I said, she's different. I lied every time I looked at her and tried to find you in the way she moved, the way she sat in silence, the way she held space. But no one held space like you did. No one looked into my shadows and called them holy. No one looked at my pain and stayed anyway. You were the kind of woman who didn't need to speak to be understood. Your silence carried scripture. Your gaze held prayers. When I was with you, I felt seen, not watched, not admired, but seen. My soul wasn't hiding behind filters when I was with you. I didn't need to perform, but with her, I was always performing, always playing some version of the man I thought I had to be. And the scariest part, she liked that version. She liked the mask. She didn't ask for the real me because she couldn't carry him. You did. And when I finally cracked, when the pressure broke through and I wept without a warning, she froze. She said nothing. She didn't move toward me. She didn't know what to do with my rawness. But you, baby, you would have known. You would have held my hand. You would have whispered, let it out. I've got you. Because you always did. Even when I didn't know how to receive it, you always had me. The first time she raised her voice at me, it wasn't even anger that stung. It was the realization that your voice never tried to cut me, even when you were hurt, even when you were broken by my absence or confused by my silence. You never tried to break me back. You had this rare kind of strength, like steel covered in velvet. You were soft, but you were never weak. You were graceful, but never passive. You could walk away, but you always tried first. You always prayed first. You fought for me in rooms I didn't know you were standing in. And now that I've seen the difference, baby, I can't unsee it. I can't unfeel the absence of your grace. I can't ignore the echo of your energy when I walk into my room and find nothing but surface conversation and selfies that don't understand spirit. She was the kind of woman who asked me what I do. But you asked me who I am, and you waited for the answer. You waited for the truth, even when I didn't know how to speak it. They all said I upgraded. They said she was fun, exciting, outgoing. But now, even they don't look at us the same. You know what happens when truth walks into the room dressed like light? Everything false starts to shrink. And when you left, you didn't drag your worth behind you. You carried it like a crown. You didn't scream, you didn't shame, you just left. And baby, your silence was louder than any goodbye. She started showing her truth slowly, not with betrayal, but with emptiness, with the way she didn't ask about my soul, with the way she rushed through moments that were meant to be sacred, with the way she didn't know how to hold stillness. You always honored silence. You knew how to sit in the sacred, but she needed noise, validation, performance, and I played along until I couldn't anymore. Because no matter how many new beginnings I tried to write, they all ended with your name still on the page. And that's when I knew she wasn't the exposure. I was. I was exposed for the man I had become without you, for the choices I made out of fear, for the truth I tried to run from. She didn't break me, baby. I broke myself the moment I believed you were replaceable. And now, I wake up with your name in my throat, and guilt in my chest. I try to pretend I'm fine. I say good morning, like I'm not broken, but inside, I'm having conversations with your memory. I'm asking your spirit if it still visits me. I'm wondering if you still whisper blessings over my name even now, even after what I did. You were the one who stayed in the fire while I looked for a shortcut out. You were the one who loved me past logic, who stood by me not because I was easy, but because I was yours. You didn't love my highlight reel. You saw my bloopers and still believed in the film. You saw the unfinished parts of me and still said, I'll wait. And what did I do? I ran, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too much for a man who hadn't yet become enough for you. Larry said, you took my tongue, and now I get it. Every conversation I have with her reminds me what I lost with you. Every dinner, every smile, every shallow moment is a mirror showing me the depth I once had. And I can't fake it anymore. I can't pretend I'm healed when I'm still haunted. I can't act like her laughter fills the room the way your presence did. Because, baby, even my house feels quieter now. Even the walls miss the sound of your prayers. People ask me why I'm distant. They say I'm lucky, but luck feels like punishment when it's built on pretending. I miss the way you saw me, the way your eyes didn't just observe me. They forgave me. They believed in who I was becoming. You spoke to the version of me I hadn't even stepped into yet. You loved me into my own evolution, and I left that. For what? For comfort, for compliments, for someone who couldn't even recognize my shadow, let alone love it. I know now. I know what you were, what you are. You were the assignment I walked away from. You were the prayer I was too proud to receive. And now I sit here, writing confessions into silence, hoping somewhere your soul still listens, hoping somewhere your spirit still remembers me. Not for who I became, but for who I was when I loved you right. And maybe you'll never come back. Maybe this pain is part of the price I pay. Maybe the lesson was never about getting you back, but about becoming the kind of man who never lets love like that slip away again. But I had to tell you. I had to say it, because pretending I don't see your worth now would be another betrayal. And baby, I can't betray you twice. I thought my new girl could replace you, but she got exposed, and I got awakened. And now I know who you are. You're the one I pray for when I don't know what to say. You're the name I whisper when I touch my chest and ask God to forgive me. You're the soul that taught me love wasn't a feeling, it was a home. And baby, I walked out of it, but I never stopped missing the key. Baby, the truth is, I didn't just lose you. I lost myself when I let you go. And it took being with someone else, someone who said the right things, who looked the part, who wore the mask of healing, for me to realize that I had only been surviving, not living. And now that I've tasted the difference between shallow comfort and sacred connection, I can't go back. I can't pretend I don't know the difference between touch and presence, between attention and intention, between being looked at and being loved. Because you didn't just see me, you remembered me. You remembered me back to myself. Keep asking God why it had to happen like this, why I had to hurt you to understand what you were, why I had to lose you before I was able to hear the sound of your absence louder than the noise of everyone else's presence. And maybe the answer isn't in the pain, it's in the awakening. Maybe losing you was never the punishment. Maybe losing you was the mirror I needed to face the man I had become. The man who thought love could be replaced by routine, or depth could be copied by beauty, or destiny could be distracted by convenience. She didn't do anything wrong. That's the part that makes this harder. She was kind. She was available. She wanted to be enough. But no matter how many smiles she gave me, I couldn't feel joy, because the problem wasn't her. The truth is, I was searching for you inside someone else. And when I couldn't find you there, I started unraveling. I became quieter. I stopped laughing the way I used to with you. I started looking out the window during conversations. I started waiting for silence, just to remember the sound of your name in my spirit. And people started noticing. At first they blamed me, said I was distant, said I was cold, said I should be grateful. But eventually even they saw it. Even they realized that this new beginning I had jumped into wasn't built on healing. It was built on hiding. It was built on fear, on loneliness, on denial. Because when someone has tasted real love, they can't go back to artificial sweetness. And baby, you were raw honey to my soul. You were ancient. You were holy. You didn't ask for attention. You carried revelation. And that terrified me. You didn't perform. You didn't beg. You didn't try to convince me. You just were. And I was too immature to understand that kind of strength. I mistook your stillness for indifference. I mistook your calm for distance. I didn't understand that the kind of love you gave me wasn't a transaction. It was a transformation. I didn't understand that your silence wasn't a void. It was a sanctuary. And now that I've sat in loud rooms with empty laughter and touched hands that don't know how to pray, I finally understand what I had, what I lost, what I tried to replace. The irony, the very thing I feared in you, your depth, your divine connection, your spiritual clarity, is the thing I now crave. I used to run from your strength because I wasn't ready to rise with it. But now I kneel. Now I whisper your name into the corners of my mind like a mantra. Now I search for your energy in the stars. Now I wake up hoping your dreams are still soft, hoping you're still protected, hoping the angels I once ignored are still walking with you, even if I no longer can. She started saying things that made me flinch. Things like, "Why are you so quiet?" Or, "You used to smile more." And the truth behind those words was never about me. It was about you. Because you never had to ask why I was quiet. You already knew. You knew when to speak and when to hold. You didn't fill silence with noise. You filled it with understanding. And every time she tried to be enough, I saw how cruel I had been to ask someone to carry a role they were never built for. She was never the divine. She was the distraction. And I don't say that to diminish her. I say it because now I understand the weight of what I placed on your shoulders. The patience you had with me wasn't passive. It was sacred. The way you waited wasn't weak. It was worship. You loved me like I was holy when I treated you like I was busy. And now, here I am, spending every waking moment trying to rewind a clock that can't be touched. I write unsent messages. I replay your voice. I imagine what it would feel like to be forgiven. Not just by you, but by myself. Baby, I didn't choose her because she was better. I chose her because I was broken. I chose her because I thought easier meant safer. I chose her because she didn't make me face myself, but you didn't let me hide. You looked into me and said, I see it all and I still love you. And I ran, because I didn't believe I deserved that kind of mercy. But now I know. Mercy wasn't the problem. My inability to receive it was. I wonder sometimes if you still think about me. If you still remember the way I used to look at you when you weren't watching. If you still feel a tug in your chest when certain songs play. I wonder if your friends ever bring me up and you have to pretend I was just a chapter. I wonder if your mother still prays for me. Your angels still whisper my name at night. I wonder if your spirit still forgives me, even when your heart can't, because mine remembers you in ways that keep me awake. In quiet moments, I see flashes of your face. In dreams, I hear your laugh echo through halls I've never walked. In crowds, I swear I catch your scent and have to stop myself from turning around. This is what happens when you try to replace the irreplaceable. This is what happens when you exchange sacred for safe. When you choose performance over presence, when you try to substitute soul with surface. This is what happens when a man loses the woman who was sent to save him from himself. And now I see it clearly. You weren't just my love. You were my mirror. You were my lighthouse. You were the soft yes that pulled me out of 1,000 silent no's I'd buried in myself. You were the healing I didn't know how to honor, and I tried to replace you with noise. But God has a way of letting the noise expose itself. New. I sit in quiet rooms, remembering a woman who taught me what real love felt like, not because she had to prove it, but because she embodied it. You were never trying to be chosen. You were the choosing itself. And now, I know. Have you ever been replaced by someone who got exposed later? Tell me below. I'm listening. Baby, do you know what it feels like to remember someone in the deepest part of your chest, where no one else can reach, where not even a new embrace can overwrite what was written by your spirit? That's what I live with now. Your name isn't just in my mind, it's etched in my nervous system. Your presence is no longer a memory, it's an echo. It plays in the background of my days like a sacred hymn I can't stop humming. No matter how far I run from its origin, you never really left me. I left myself when I walked away from you. They told me time would heal me, but time didn't bring peace. Time brought clarity, and now I sit in that clarity like a man who just survived a flood, looking around at everything he tried to save, only to realize the one thing that truly mattered was what he let float away. You weren't the storm, you were the ark, and I abandoned the very thing that could have carried me through. She got exposed, but not by scandal, not by gossip, by God, by contrast, by the weight of your memory, by the way her presence couldn't hold my spirit the way yours did, by the way her voice never calmed my chaos, by the way her prayers didn't cover my name, the way yours did when you cried out to the heavens for me behind closed doors. And I see now that God allowed her to enter my life, not to replace you, but to remind me of what I forfeited. It was never about her. It was about the mirror. It was about the lesson. And now, the lesson burns in my chest like incense in a temple. I don't feel worthy to enter anymore. You were my sanctuary. You were the place I was becoming myself in. You were the spiritual home I didn't know how to honor because I was still addicted to wandering. I used to think that love meant peace, but you showed me that real love means purification. You made me confront myself. You asked questions no one else dared to ask. You didn't want my money. You didn't care about my followers. You wanted my soul clean. You wanted my spirit awake. You wanted my childhood wounds to be loved, not avoided. And back then, that terrified me. Because I wasn't ready to be naked in truth. I was only ready to be clothed in distractions. But now I see that your love wasn't hard. It was holy, and holiness always burns the flesh before it frees the soul. She liked the man I pretended to be. You loved the man I was becoming. She praised my mask. You honored my mirror. She wanted the moment. You held my mission. And the worst part, you never competed. You didn't fight for attention. You just stood back and let the divine do what it does best. Reveal. You walked away like a queen. You didn't lower yourself. You didn't send messages out of desperation. You didn't expose me. You let time and truth do that. And they did. In the most brutal, honest, necessary way. I now understand why people compare her to you. Because they feel the difference. They see it in how I move, in how I speak, in how I no longer laugh from my belly, in how my eyes look toward the door more often, as if waiting for someone to walk in who will never come. I've become a hollowed version of the man I was with you. Not because she's wrong, but because she's not you. You were the blueprint, and every other attempt has become a poor imitation. Every smile is thinner. Every kiss is colder. Every conversation feels like sand slipping through fingers. She asked me last week if I still think about you. I said no, but the lump in my throat said otherwise. The way I clenched my jaw said otherwise. The way I turned away so she wouldn't see my eyes flood with everything I've buried said otherwise, baby. I still feel you. When I'm in bed and the fan hums just like it did when we used to fall asleep talking about dreams. When I hear someone speak with the kind of soft wisdom only you carried. When I see a couple praying together before eating. And I remember how your hands shook the first time I let you lead our prayer. She got exposed the moment I tried to love her the way I was supposed to love you. That's when everything collapsed. That's when God whispered, "You cannot build sacred on top of substitution." And now I'm left with this ache, not just for you, but for who I was when I was with you. That man, he had purpose, he had vision, he had God at the center. He smiled with both his lips and his soul. You brought him out of me. And now I feel like I buried him with your goodbye. People think I'm quiet because I'm focused, but I'm quiet because I'm mourning. Not a breakup, not a title. I'm mourning the sacredness I lost, the sanctuary I didn't protect, the prophecy I let slip through my fingers because I was too busy chasing pleasure over purpose. I still scroll through old messages sometimes, not to dwell, but to remind myself of the kind of woman God trusted me with. and I wonder if God will ever trust me again. Sometimes I think about messaging you, just to say, hey, I see it now. I know I didn't deserve you, but thank you. But then I remember that my voice probably doesn't carry safety anymore, and I'd rather protect your peace than disturb your healing. But if your soul can hear me, if there's a heaven frequency that connects us still, then hear me now, baby. You were never the one I had to get over. You were the one I should have grown into. You were the temple I treated like a tent. You were the prayer I answered with pride. And now, the silence between us has become sacred. I speak your name only in reverence now. You are not a chapter. You are the scripture. You are not the one that got away. You are the one I wasn't worthy to keep. You are you are the example. And baby, if the stars ever realign, if God ever softens your heart, if the angels ever whisper my name, and you don't turn away in pain, then know this, I will never make the same mistake twice. I will never choose comfort over calling. I will never again replace sacred with surface, because the new girl wasn't wrong. She was just the mirror that showed me the one I broke. And now, I finally know who you are. Have you ever had to watch someone replace you with a weaker version of love? Drop a heart if you feel this, baby. I've come to realize that the deepest grief is not the kind that makes you cry. It's the kind that makes you silent. It's the kind that makes you forget how to speak, how to smile, how to explain what went wrong. Because when you lose a stranger, it hurts. When you lose a lover, it stings. But when you lose your mirror, your soul's reflection, the one God whispered into your chest long before you ever met, baby, that kind of loss doesn't scream. It haunts, and I'm haunted by your stillness, by your dignity, by your absence, by the sacred hush you left behind when you walked away with nothing but your crown and your prayers. They said I should move on, that I should stop looking back, that I should focus on what's in front of me. But what do you do when what's in front of you is a reflection of what you broke behind you? What do you do when every new day reminds you of the one person who made you new just by looking at you with eyes full of truth? I used to want a second chance for selfish reasons. I wanted to prove I wasn't a failure. I wanted to rewrite the ending. But now, I want it for a different reason. I want it because I finally see who I was supposed to be, for you, not for her, not for the crowd, not for the claps or the praise or the illusion of moving on, but for you, the one who stood beside me when I had nothing to give but a wounded soul and a history of hiding. I keep imagining what it would be like if you walked through the door right now, if you didn't say anything, just looked at me with those eyes that held storms and sanctuaries in the same breath. I wonder if I would fall apart or fall to my knees. Maybe both. Because I don't need your approval anymore. I need your forgiveness. I don't need your body. I need your blessing. I don't need your attention. I need your peace. I need to know that somewhere inside of you the flame didn't die, that somewhere behind the silence there is still a softness when you hear my name. She tried, she really did. The new girl showed up with effort, with intentions, with smiles and charm and well-rehearsed emotions. But baby, love can't be rehearsed. Love isn't about trying hard. Love is about remembering each other at the soul level. And you never had to try to love me. You just did, effortlessly, eternally, like your heart was carved with my name in it before I even arrived. And I destroyed that. I tried to call it closure. I tried to call it growth. But let's call it what it really was. I got scared. I got lazy. I got spiritually blind. And instead of facing the altar of your love, I chose the aisle of distraction. I chose the comfort of unchallenging love. I chose the attention of someone who clapped when I performed, but never noticed when I was bleeding. You always noticed. Even when I said, "I'm fine," you looked at me and said, "No, you're not, but I'm here." That's what I miss. That's what I lost. And now I cry, not because you're gone, but because I had to lose you to understand how found I truly was with you. You were my divine feminine. You didn't just love me. You aligned me. You didn't just want me, you remembered me. And I walked away from that because I didn't know how to be seen. Because I thought love was about keeping someone, not keeping yourself worthy of someone sacred. You were the mirror, and I looked away, but now I would do anything to hold that mirror again, even if it shows me everything I've done wrong. Because I'm ready now, not to be perfect, but to be pure, to be honest, to be accountable, to walk with you, not ahead, not behind, but beside, like I should have from the start. People think a man's strength is in his ability to move on, but I've learned that a man's strength is shown in how deep he can feel the loss of what he broke, and how sincerely he can repent without demanding reward. So here I am, no flowers, no promises, just a prayer. If your heart ever softens again toward me, if heaven ever reopens this door, if the ancestors still believe in us, if your soul still remembers mine when the noise fades, then know this, baby. I will not come back as the man who left you. I will come back as the man who crawled through fire to stand before you clean. I will come back barefoot, humbled, anointed by every tear I cried in silence over the altar of what I lost. And I will never try to own you again. I will only serve what you are, the queen, the oracle, the sacred one. Have you ever prayed for one last chance? Not from ego, but from your soul. Drop a hands if yes. Baby, I know now that I can't keep asking the universe to rewind time, because maybe this heartbreak wasn't punishment. Maybe it was prophecy. Maybe what happened to me wasn't just about losing you, but about finally waking up to the spiritual crime I committed when I let ego sit on the throne where love was meant to rule. I was a king who abandoned his queen for a mirage in the desert. I drank from a well that had no water, only reflections. And now I see that I didn't just betray you. I betrayed the part of me that God trusted to protect you. I betrayed the prayer that was answered when you entered my life. And instead of bowing before the miracle, I turned away because I was still addicted to noise, still afraid of being loved purely, still too immature to receive a blessing I didn't think I deserved. And now, the silence you left behind has become a cathedral of echoes, where your name is carved in every corner of my mind. I sit with my regrets like old friends now. We talk every night. I ask them questions they can't answer. What would have happened if I stayed? Would she still be holding my hand? Would her mother still be calling me son? And regret just stares back with the same answer. You had everything, and you threw it away. There's no blame, no excuses, only the raw, burning truth. I was given a divine feminine and I acted like she was common. I was given a woman who prayed over me, fasted for me, believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. And I traded her for someone who clapped at my potential, but had no idea how to help me carry my calling. I know that sounds harsh. I'm not here to disrespect the new girl. She showed up the best way she knew how. But baby, there are some things you can't fake. You can't fake alignment. You can't fake the way a soul leaps when it hears the voice it was created to follow. You can't fake the way your spirit falls silent in the presence of something holy. And you were holy. You didn't shout. You didn't beg. You didn't chase me. You just became still. And that stillness became my judgment. That stillness became my awakening. Because in a world that's constantly screaming for attention, your silence became the loudest sound I'd ever heard. And now I hear it everywhere. In rooms filled with laughter, in streets filled with noise, in relationships filled with effort but no essence. That's when I realized I didn't miss you because you were beautiful. I missed you because you were my blueprint. You were the map God gave me, and I set it on fire because I thought I could find my own way. But all I found were mirrors showing me my own cowardice, my own arrogance, my own fear. You gave me prophecy, and I asked for permission to entertain counterfeits. You offered me an altar, and I danced around it like a fool who didn't understand sacred ground. And now that ground has been sealed, not in bitterness, not in hate, but in protection. Because heaven doesn't keep its gates open forever when you don't know how to walk barefoot. And baby, I see it now. I know I can't just show up and ask for forgiveness with a few poetic words. I know I can't just speak my way back into your arms. That's not what this is. This isn't about getting you back. This is about getting back to myself. The self I was when I stood beside you. The self I betrayed when I walked away. She got exposed, yes, but so did I. I was exposed as a man who talked about loyalty, but didn't know how to guard the sacred. I was exposed as someone who wanted love, but didn't know how to receive it. I was exposed as a soul in hiding, using relationships as bandages instead of mirrors. And now I bleed openly, not for sympathy, but for truth. Because it's only in this bleeding that I've begun to feel alive again. And you, my love, you were the wound that became the awakening. You were the storm that became the still water I now long to swim in. And I wonder if you still think about me when the moon is full. If your spirit still remembers the way mine trembled when I held your hand during prayer. I wonder if there's a part of you that still believes in miracles. Because I do. I believe in them now more than ever. Not because I'm desperate, but because I've finally met myself. The self you saw all along. The man who wasn't afraid to kneel. The man who wasn't afraid to weep. The man who isn't afraid to say, I was wrong. And sit in that silence until heaven speaks again. They say time heals, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes time doesn't heal. It humbles. And in that humility I've found a kind of love I never knew existed. A love that doesn't demand to be returned. A love that prays from a distance. A love that says, even if she never comes back, I will honor her name as long as I breathe. because that's what you deserve. Honor, protection, legacy, not apology gifts, not romantic gestures, not recycled poetry. You deserve a man who wakes up every day and lives like you are still watching, who builds like your prayers are still covering him, who repents like heaven is still watching. I thought I needed you back to be whole, but now I know I needed you to break me, because it was in the breaking that I finally became honest. It was in the breaking that I stopped performing. It was in the breaking that I started praying again. And now my prayer is simple. If you never return, let my life be the offering. Let every good deed I do be a tribute to the woman who saw my wings before I believed I could fly. Let every sacred choice I make carry your essence. Let every future vow I speak to anyone else be born from the integrity I learned by failing you. Because failure taught me what love actually is, not just butterflies and soft words, but sacrifice, humility, listening, choosing someone even when it's hard. And baby, I choose you still, not in possession, but in reverence. You are the lesson I will teach my children about. You are the one whose name will never leave my spirit. You are the ghost I welcome into every room, not as a curse, but as a blessing I was too blind to protect. I no longer cry for what I lost. I cry in gratitude that I ever held it. That for a moment in time, God trusted me with one of his most sacred creations. And though I fumbled her, I remember her now with holy tears. I remember her with a heart that is finally awake. I remember her not as my failure, but as my prophecy. And whether we ever speak again or not, whether we ever sit across from each other or not, know this: you were never just a girl. You are the garden, the altar, the whisper of heaven sent to wake me up. And I'm awake now. Have you ever awakened to a love too late, but kept it sacred in your heart forever? Drop a rose if you know that pain. Baby, something is happening to me that I never expected. This pain I used to carry like chains is now starting to feel like prayer beads. Every memory of you, every echo of your name, every soft flash of your smile across my mind. It no longer just hurts, it humbles me. It teaches me. It disciplines my soul. It molds me into someone who isn't just broken anymore, but becoming holy. I never understood back then what you meant when you said love was sacred work. I thought love was a feeling, a thrill, a comfort. But now I see love was an altar, and you were offering your spirit, and I was offering my shadow. And instead of rising together in flame and transformation, I dimmed us both by refusing to meet you where the divine was calling me to stand. I know now that every moment with you was sacred, every conversation was spiritual, every kiss was a prayer, and when I walked away thinking I was choosing freedom, what I actually chose was to exile myself from grace. You were not a woman. You were a world. You were the universe's finest painting, and I, too foolish to appreciate the strokes, tried to repaint you with colors from my past. But something inside me cracked open the moment I realized you weren't coming back. Not in the way I hoped. Not with a phone call. Not with a message. Not with some dramatic reunion. No, baby. You returned differently. You returned through silence, through signs, through dreams, through strangers' voices, that accidentally echoed your words. You came back in moments of stillness, when God stopped me mid-step and whispered your name with no warning, as if heaven itself was mourning what I had broken. And I started to ask myself, what kind of love doesn't die, even when it's gone? What kind of presence haunts me not like a ghost, but like a guardian? And the answer came quietly, as all divine things do. It was never just love. It was a soul contract. It was a mission. It was a calling, and I failed to answer the call. But now, I am listening. I am listening with everything in me, with my regrets, with my bones, with my spirit that now wakes up every day and asks, how do I live in a way that honors her? Because I no longer want to just be remembered by you. I want to be redeemed in your story, not by coming back, but by rising into the man who was supposed to protect the prophecy instead of running from it, rising into the kind of lover who doesn't need you to forgive him to start doing the right thing, rising into the kind of man who honors your silence more than he ever honored your presence. I used to fear losing you. Now I fear losing the memory of you, because if I ever forget what you meant to me, I'll lose the last holy part of myself. That's how deeply your love rooted itself inside me, not as possession, but as direction. You became my compass, baby, and now, even in your absence, I use your name to navigate through every distraction this world throws at me. I have stopped searching for someone new, not because I'm broken, but because I'm building. I'm rebuilding the temple I let fall apart when I chased temporary pleasures over eternal purpose. I'm rebuilding the trust I destroyed with my own hands. I'm rebuilding the version of me that you believed in when I couldn't see past my own wounds. And this time, I'm not building to win you back. I'm building to be a man worthy of your memory. Because maybe the miracle isn't us getting back together. Maybe the miracle is that your love activated something inside me so holy it couldn't be killed by my betrayal. Maybe your purpose was never to stay, but to awaken. And God, you awakened me. And now I live differently. I speak differently. I move differently. I no longer let ego lead my decisions. I don't chase validation. I don't perform for love. I sit with myself. I ask hard questions. I write letters I never send. I whisper prayers I don't expect to be answered. And every night, I light a candle, not for you to return, but for your light to stay with me. I want my future children to know that their father was once brought to his knees by a woman so sacred, heaven had to intervene when he mistreated her. I want them to know that healing doesn't come when someone forgives you. It comes when you forgive yourself enough to transform. You taught me that without even trying, without shouting, just by existing in my life like a song I can't stop humming, even though the lyrics are long gone. And here's the part I never told anyone. Some nights, I sit in silence and ask God if you're doing okay. Not because I expect to hear an answer, but because it brings me peace to speak your name into the universe with love instead of shame. I don't want your new life to be haunted by my pain. I want your new life to be an extension of the prayers you once made for me. I want your smile to stretch wider because you know I finally got it. Baby, I've reached a place now where even if my mouth never says your name again, my soul will always echo it in silence. This love was never meant to be shouted from rooftops. It was meant to be whispered in prayer. It was meant to be protected in private. It was meant to change a man from the inside out. And that is exactly what you've done. I'm not the same person I was when I lost you. I've gone through seasons of shame, oceans of grief, deserts of longing. I've looked in the mirror and hated what I saw, not because of what you said, but because of what you never needed to say. You loved me with a kind of grace that revealed all the places I was still unhealed. You held up a mirror to my soul, and I turned away because I wasn't ready to meet myself. But now I stare into that mirror every day, and every time I see the cracks, I thank you. Because it was through those cracks that the light finally poured in. I no longer need to be seen. I no longer crave closure. What I crave now is clarity. What I worship now is truth. And the truth is this: your love was not just a chapter in my story. It was the revelation. The moment everything changed. The before and after of my soul. People keep asking me, why are you still talking about her? And I tell them, because I still feel her prayers. Because I still remember the way she looked at me. Not with lust, not with fantasy, but with recognition. Like her soul had been looking for mine across lifetimes. And when we met, it wasn't fireworks. It was remembrance. I didn't fall in love with you, baby. I returned to love through you. And now that I know what that feels like, I can't settle for imitation. I can't pretend anymore. I can't keep calling attention affection. And I can't keep confusing lust with destiny. Because you ruined me for the ordinary, and that is the greatest gift I never asked for. I don't know what God has planned for us. I don't know if we'll ever sit face to face again, if you'll ever read these words, or if your life has already moved so far beyond me that I am now just a quiet chapter in a powerful novel. But even if that's true, even if my name never crosses your lips again, let me say this now while I still have the strength to speak. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for calling out my greatness when I was hiding in my wounds. Thank you for loving me without trying to fix me. Thank you for letting me go without cursing my name. And thank you, most of all, for becoming the standard by which I now measure every step I take. Because even though I lost you, I gained something else, myself. And I know now, with every ounce of my being, that was the real purpose of your presence. Not to complete me, not to comfort me, but to awaken me. And baby, I'm awake. I walk differently now. I speak differently now. I treat others with more reverence. I speak to women with more care. I pray before I make decisions. I ask for guidance before I move. And every time I feel tempted to repeat an old pattern, I hear your voice, not in anger, not in judgment, but in compassion. That soft, sacred tone you used when you were trying to show me my reflection without breaking my spirit. That voice still lives in me. It guides me. It shapes me. And maybe that's the miracle. Maybe we were never meant to grow old together in the physical. Maybe we were meant to grow each other's souls. Maybe your exit was not abandonment, but activation. Maybe love's greatest form is not possession, but transformation. From left field to the right, toward those riderless horses. So here I am, not begging for your return, but offering my truth, offering my love not to control you, but to honor you, to let the universe know that once upon a time, I was held by a sacred woman who changed everything, and I let her go, but she never left my soul. And that is the kind of love I now live for, the kind that stays even after the goodbye, the kind that burns brighter after the silence, the kind that humbles a man so deeply he rebuilds his life not to win her back, but to deserve her memory. I hope wherever you are now, your smile is real, your laughter is deep, your circle is safe. I hope your pillows are soft and your prayers are being answered. I hope you've found someone who honors your crown without making you beg for it. And if that someone isn't me, just know that I will still be thanking God for you forever, because you didn't just love me. You liberated me. You didn't just kiss me. You baptized me. And no matter where life takes me from here, you will always be the moment where my real life began. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that even their silence became your teacher? Drop a bird if their love still lives inside you. Beloved, if this message touched your soul in any way, if you've ever been that woman whose love was misunderstood, whose truth was ignored, but whose legacy still shaped a man's transformation, then I wrote this for you. This channel exists to honor divine love, the kind that breaks you, heals you, and brings you home to yourself. If you'd like to support the mission, you can leave a super thanks below. Every gift helps me continue creating stories and messages that uplift the sacred feminine and restore truth in a world that's forgotten how rare you really are. I don't ask for much, but if your heart feels moved, and if you've ever been on the other end of a love like this, maybe leave something in honor of the love you never stopped praying for. I promise to carry it with the same reverence this story now carries you. Thank you for being here, for watching, for feeling, for healing. You are the miracle, and your love is the prophecy.